Today I am going to show you how to permanently remove scratches from your car's paint at home with about $10 of materials in 5 simple steps, and the results are going to look like the scratch was never there. And let me tell you first where scratches actually come from, because it is almost never what people assume. Somebody squeezes past your car in a parking lot and a zipper or a coat button drags along the door. You or somebody else washed the car with a dirty towel and ground a piece of grit right across the paint, which is the single most common cause and the one nobody suspects. A dog jumps up on the side of the car because it is happy to see you and leaves 3 lovely parallel lines. A branch, a bicycle handlebar, a shopping cart, a kid's backpack. There is no avoiding them entirely, and that is fine because most of them are fixable. Now, before we touch anything, you have to know what kind of scratch you have, because this method fixes one kind and not the other. And getting that wrong is how people make things worse. Your paint has 3 layers plus 1. On the bare metal there is primer. On top of that is the base coat, which is the color. On top of that is the clear coat, which is what protects the color and gives it the shine. And that clear coat is the thickest layer, somewhere around 1 to 2 thousandths of an inch. To picture that, it is about the thickness of a sandwich bag. And then above all of it sits the wax layer, which is not really paint at all, but it matters because it fills tiny imperfections and takes the first abuse. Now, why can you even see a scratch? On good paint, light hits the surface and reflects back in one even pattern. A scratch reflects light in a different direction, and your eye catches that difference instantly. So what we are actually doing here is not filling anything in. We are smoothing the edges of that scratch down until light stops catching it. That is the whole principle, and once you understand that, the 5 steps make perfect sense. So, is your scratch a clear coat scratch? Here is the test, and it takes 10 seconds. Spray the scratch with soapy water. If the scratch disappears while it is wet and comes back as it dries, that is a clear coat scratch, and you can absolutely fix it because the water fills the groove and matches the reflection of the surrounding paint. If it is still plainly visible when wet, it has gone through the clear coat. And if you look closely and see gray primer or bare metal in the bottom of it, that one needs paint and a new clear coat over it, which is a different job entirely. Do not sand a scratch like that, you will only make a bigger mess. Now, before we get into it, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy these mechanic secrets and hacks for free, consider subscribing. It is free, and you can always change your mind later. Now let's get into it. Here is the whole job in one breath before we do it properly. Wash the area, mask it off, sand it with 3000 and then 5000 grit, polish it and wax it. 5 steps, about $10 in materials, and an hour of your afternoon. Now let's do each one. Step 1. Wash the area. Soapy water and a clean microfiber towel, and if that towel is brand new, rip the tag off it first, because that tag will scratch your paint, and we are here to remove scratches, not create them. Clean the panel thoroughly, because any grit sitting on that paint is going to get dragged around under everything we do next. And while it is wet, do the disappearing test one more time to confirm what you are dealing with. Step 2. Mask off the scratch. Run painter's tape along both sides of it, about ½ an inch away on each side, and tape off the ends as well. 2 reasons for this. First, once you start working, that scratch is going to be underwater and haze, and you will genuinely lose track of exactly where it was. Second, and more importantly, the tape keeps you honest about the size of your work area. And I want to explain that second reason properly, because it is the thing folks get wrong. You want to work the smallest area you possibly can. Every bit of clear coat you take off is gone forever, and you cannot put it back. 2 reasons to stay tight. 1, a smaller area is far less work for you. 2, and this is the real one. A big sanded area means a big area of thin clear coat, and thin clear coat fails early. So tight and small, always. Now as we move through the steps, we are going to move that tape outward an inch or two each time, because we want each finer step to spread a little past the last one. That is called feathering, and it is what stops you from ending up with a visible square patch of shiny paint sitting in the middle of your fender. Step 3, and this is the one that scares people. Sanding. Yes, we are going to take sandpaper to your car's paint. Trust the process, because we are using grits so fine they are closer to polish than sandpaper. Which grit you start with depends on the scratch. Run your fingernail across it. If your nail catches in the groove, that is a deeper scratch, and you start with 3000 grit. If your nail glides over it and it is faint, skip straight to 5000 grit and save yourself some clear coat. And remember the rule with sandpaper: the higher the number, the finer and less aggressive it is, so 3000 cuts more than 5000. Here is the single best tip in this whole video. Wrap your sandpaper around a small kitchen sponge. If you sand with just your bare fingers behind the paper, you get a hard pressure point under every fingertip, and those pressure points dig unevenly and leave you with a wavy, blotchy result. A sponge spreads the pressure out flat and even across the whole piece of paper, and the difference in the finished job is night and day. Now soak everything. Spray the panel until it is genuinely wet, and spray the sandpaper too, and keep it wet the entire time you work. This is a wet sand, and the water carries the removed material away so the paper does not clog and gouge you. With 3000 grit, sand perpendicular to the scratch. If the scratch runs left to right, you sand up and down, across it, medium pressure, and work for about 15 seconds at a time. Then stop, wipe the area with your towel, and look, is the scratch still there? If yes, wet it again and keep going, checking every 15 or 20 seconds. Every manufacturer's clear coat has a different hardness, so I cannot tell you a number of minutes, which is exactly why you check constantly. Be patient here, because patience is what keeps you from sanding through. When the scratch is gone, the area will look hazy and dull. That is normal and expected. That haze is thousands of tiny uniform sanding marks, and the next steps remove them. Now move your tape outward an inch or two on each side and switch to 5000 grit. Sponge again, everything soaking wet again. This time work in small circular motions rather than one direction, because now we are cutting down the sanding marks from every angle. And deliberately work a little past where you sanded with the 3000 out into the fresh paint to feather the transition. Wipe and inspect as you go. When you are done with the 5000, pull the tape and take a good look. The scratch should be completely invisible, and what you should have left is a hazy but perfectly smooth area. And I want to be firm about this. If you can still see any part of that scratch at this stage, stop and keep sanding, because polish will not remove what sandpaper did not. Whatever scratch is still there now is going to be there at the end. Step 4. Polish. Get a fine polish, and the way to know you have the right one is that the bottle says it removes fine scratches and swirl marks. Polish is really just an extremely fine abrasive in a liquid, so think of it as somewhere between 5000 and 10,000 grit. Its whole job is to remove that sanding haze and bring the gloss back. Clean the surface first so you are not rubbing dirt in. Then take a clean, unused section of your microfiber towel. Put the polish on the towel rather than on the paint, and work it in with firm circular motions. Yes, circles, and this is the one step where circles are correct, because you are attacking the haze from every direction at once. Use medium to heavy pressure here, considerably more than you used with the sandpaper, because this abrasive is far finer and it needs the pressure to cut. Focus on the hazy area and then feather out past it into the surrounding paint. Then take another clean part of the towel and lightly buff the residue off. Look at the reflection. On a job done right, that reflection comes back sharp and deep, and the hazy patch disappears completely. If a little haze remains, do a second round of polish. 2 rounds is common, and it is not a sign you did anything wrong. One more note on polish before we move on, because there is a misconception worth killing. Polishing is not maintenance, it is repair. Every time you polish, you take a thin layer of clear coat off, and you only have so much of it. So polish when you have a problem to fix, and not as part of some monthly ritual. Washing and waxing are maintenance. Polishing is surgery, and you do not perform surgery on a healthy patient. Step 5. Wax, and do not skip this one. Use a paste wax rather than a liquid for this job, because paste has more solids in it and does better here. What you have just done is remove the top of the clear coat and expose fresh clear coat with no protection on it. Wax on, let it haze up for a minute, wax off. That layer fills any microscopic imperfections left behind, and more importantly, it protects the clear coat you just thinned. This is the step that makes the repair last. And that is the whole job. Water, sandpaper, polish, wax. Let me put that next to the alternatives for a second, because the comparison is why I am so keen on this method. The scratch removal pens and the colored polishes sold at the counter mostly work by filling the groove with wax or a colored filler, which looks fine for a couple of weeks and then washes out at the car wash, and the scratch is right back. The rubbing compounds sold as scratch removers are the same idea as our polish but coarser, and used by hand on a deep scratch, they leave their own haze behind that you then have to fix. What we did instead was physically level the surface, and there is nothing to wash out because there is nothing filled. It is gone. No power tools, no special equipment, no shop. The scratch is not hidden or filled. It is genuinely gone, and it stays gone because you did not cover it up with a colored wax that washes out in 3 weeks. Now the top tip, and this is the mistake to avoid. It is entirely possible to sand right through the clear coat, and when you do, you will see the color start to lift or a dull spot appear that polish cannot fix, and then you are into spraying clear coat and blending it, which is a far bigger job. So here is my rule. If you have been sanding a while and the scratch is still not gone, stop anyway. A faint scratch you can barely see is a far better outcome than a burn-through panel. Know when to quit. The professionals have paint depth gauges to tell them exactly how much they have left. You have judgment, so use it and stay conservative. Now let me answer the questions I know are coming, because I have been asked all of them 100 times. Can you do this with a machine polisher instead of by hand? Yes, and on a whole hood full of swirl marks, a small dual-action polisher will save you an hour. But for one scratch, by hand is fine, and by hand is safer, because a machine takes clear coat off faster than you expect, and it takes it off fastest exactly where you least want it, on the sharp edges of body lines. If you do use a machine, keep it moving, keep it flat, and stay away from edges. Does this work on a black car? It works on every color, but black and other dark colors show absolutely everything, so your work has to be neater, and you will probably want that extra round of polish. White is the most forgiving color there is. What about scratches on plastic bumpers and mirror caps? Same process, same steps, because those parts have clear coat over them too. Just go gentler, because the paint film on flexible plastic is often thinner than on metal panels. And what about a scratch on the roof or the very edge of a panel? Be careful on edges specifically. Paint is always thinnest right at an edge or over a sharp body line because of how it was sprayed, so that is where people burn through. Keep your sanding away from edges and let the polish do more of the work there. A few more things worth knowing before you go out there. Work in the shade with the panel cool to the touch, because hot paint and evaporating water gives you a poor result. Take your rings and watch off, and wear something without zippers or a belt buckle, because I have watched people fix one scratch and put in two new ones leaning across the fender. And do the whole job on a small test spot first if you are nervous. There is always a scratch somewhere low on a bumper or a door edge where nobody will ever look, and that is the perfect place to learn what the process feels like before you take sandpaper to the hood. And here is the honest money argument, which is the whole reason I am showing you this. A body shop will quote you $200 to $500 to fix a couple of clear coat scratches, and a mobile detailer will ask you $150. The sandpaper, the polish, and the wax together cost about $10 to $15, and you will have enough left over to do every scratch on the car and the next car after it. This is one of the highest paying hours of work available to an ordinary person in their own driveway. One last piece of judgment from me, since I spent 50 years watching people make this decision. If it is a clear coat scratch, do it yourself, and do it soon, because a scratch left open lets moisture sit in it. If your fingernail drops into it and you can see primer or metal, do not sand it, because that one needs paint. And if the panel has multiple deep scratches and creases from a real impact, that is a body shop conversation, and there is no shame in that. Knowing which of those three you are looking at is the actual skill, and now you have it. And a word about prevention, since we are here. Nearly every scratch I have ever seen on a well-cared-for car came from the washing, not the driving. So wash top to bottom, never in circles, always in straight lines, because a straight scratch is far less visible and far easier to remove than a swirl. Use 2 buckets, one with soap and one to rinse the dirt out of your mitt, and never let that mitt touch the ground. Get those habits right, and you will spend a lot fewer afternoons doing what I just showed you. Down in the comments, tell me what put the scratch on your car, because I have heard everything from shopping carts to a neighbor's dog jumping up to say hello, and I read every single one. And if you try this, come back and tell me how it turned out, especially if you were nervous about taking sandpaper to your own paint. And here is the part one like best about this job. Nothing in it is a trade secret. There is no special chemical, no proprietary machine, no certification. It is patience, water, and knowing when to stop, and the only reason it feels out of reach is that nobody ever showed you. Now somebody has. Until then, wet test it first, work small, and always wax when you are done. Don't let them sell you a repair you don't need. I'll see you in the next one.